Chairman Goodlatte, Ranking Member Conyers, and distinguished members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Angelique Brunner, and I'm founder and president of EB5 Capital, a regional center operator based in Maryland. I founded the company in 2007 in the District of Columbia to utilize foreign capital in disadvantaged communities and support living wage job creation. Founding the company during the economic downturn gave me a unique perspective on capital markets, their lack of resilience, and the importance of a flexible, independent source of capital. Today, EB5 Capital is a leading regional center operator. We manage more than $400 million of investment capital that represents more than 20 projects in 5 states and the District of Columbia on behalf of clients from 50 countries. Our investments have anchored more than $2.4 billion of total development that has created thousands of jobs. The company's initial focus was Washington, D.C., where we have committed over $250 million of investment in transitioning communities in the Convention Center corridor, the Ballpark and Capitol Riverfront area, and most recently in Noma, where Uline Arena is reshaping the entire neighborhood with REI's flagship store and the district's first creative Class A offices. Our expansion outside of the district includes projects throughout California and the entire state of Michigan, where we believe that we can bring $100 million a year for qualified EB5 projects under the current TEA definitions. I'm here today to comment on proposed regulations that, if enacted, will jeopardize the ability of the program to continue to draw foreign direct investment to the United States. I urge Congress to complete the legislative reform of the EB5 program that your committee has been working on with stakeholders for the past 2 years. Regulatory changes in support of new legislation could then be revisited after congressional action. The most problematic proposed changes that I will focus on are the changes to the targeted employment area definition and the increases in investment amounts. On their face, both may seem grounded in principled arguments, but with further examination, the economic basis of both are subjective and far from a best practices approach to the reform each is meant to foster. My first area of concern is that the proposed TEA definition does not incorporate pre-existing government criteria. DHS is proposing to continue the single variable criteria of a targeted employment area. I was hopeful that DHS would propose new criteria practiced elsewhere in federal government, like those used to define the new market's tax credit qualifying geographies, or eliminate the TEA entirely. Additionally, proposed limitations based on number of census tracts are biased against densely populated urban areas that have significantly more census tracts per square mile than suburban and rural areas. The suggested donut approach that measures economic development as a circle of adjacent census tracts rather than commuting distance does not reflect the reality of economic development in cities, which follow a block-by-block path and/or occur along public transit lines. To illustrate this bias, I offer an anecdote from my commute to the hearing from my office this morning, an 8.3-mile drive. If I take a suburban route, I travel only 10 census tracts, but if I travel through the District of Columbia, I cover 21 census tracts. My second area of concern is that the market will not support the proposed increase in investment levels. At this time, the EB5 program is effectively operated as a one-tier level of investment, with 95% of investments occurring at the $500,000 level, which DHS proposes raising to $1.35 million. Such an increase will shock the marketplace and, in my opinion, decimate the EB5 program. The U.S. competes for investors with about 40 countries. Our ability to attract investors is already compromised because of our complex immigration requirements, visa capacity issues, and processing backlogs. An increase in investment amounts at the magnitude proposed will further drive investors away from U.S. projects. While the investment tiers of $500 and $1 million date back to the beginning of the program, the higher investment amount has never been competitive. Success and reform can be aligned. Incentives for rural and distressed urban areas through visa set-asides will achieve the investments expressed by many stakeholders. Reform efforts should shift away from the arbitrary single variable TEA to a single investment amount. Given the program's backlog, investors want their visas quicker. A single investment amount eliminating the TEA coupled with set-asides will incent increased investment in needed areas. In conclusion, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Conyers, and distinguished members of the committee, I strongly urge you to advise the current administration to cancel the regulations proposed by the previous administration. I ask that you instead support Congress to complete its work on legislative reform of the EB-5 program. Regulatory changes in support of new legislation could then be revisited after congressional action. Thank you. This concludes my statement, and I would be pleased to answer questions.
Thank you, Ms. Brunner.